Hey guys, Steven here, and today I've got the sunglasses so I can look all cool while I loop, but we're also going to be working with the loop pedal and trying to build basic loops and then kind of some intermediate loops. So we'll start simple and we'll work our way up from there. And if you like videos like these and you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and we'll just jump right into it. Okay, so first, if you've never used a loop pedal before, there are many different kinds. So mine has two pedals, and they stopped making this particular model, but I linked a few in the description below that you can check out if you wanted to. And yes, those are affiliate links. But basically, you have some options. You have one with multiple pedals, so that you have like a start pedal and a stop pedal. And then that way, when you do the start pedal, that can also start the extra loop over after you've made one loop. So if you hit that one again, the loop will just start back over, whereas if you hit the stop pedal, it'll just completely stop. But if you have a single pedal, you might have to hold if you want to delete the loop, you might have to hold the pedal down. You might have to do some weird double click kinds of things. So sometimes a single pedal can be a little bit tricky. But regardless of if you have a loop pedal or not, I think that the way we're going to be breaking down how to build these will still be important as a bass player to understand how you fit in the mix with other instruments. We'll be imitating the other instruments on here, and just a very, very like basic imitation of them, which means like obviously we're not going to imitate the entire drum kit with this, but we might imitate the bass drum and the snare drum. And we're not going to imitate full chords, but we might imitate some 2-note chords or maybe even some 3-note chords. So hopefully that helps. Good evening. So I'm thinking we'll start with something that's very, very basic, where first we just play a bass line and we loop a melody over it. So I'm going to make these up, but I'm going to try to keep them really basic so that you can kind of follow along. The bass line will sound something like this. If I do that, if I was counting along with that, it'd be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 then we'll just start that loop over. So the trick to looping is you want to hit the pedal right when you hit the first note, and then you want to stop it right at the end of the measure that you're on. So you got to leave all the space. You don't want to just, if you have an empty spot at the end of the measure, you still have to count it out so that you're not chopping off the extra time. So I like to either count while I'm playing or kind of bob my head while I'm playing just to kind of make sure I don't cut it short. But that'll be our pattern. So that's going to be the 3rd fret on the A string and the 5th fret on the D string. So we're going to play the first pattern twice. It'll be like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Then we'll go to the second note: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And so what we're doing there basically is we're outlining a C chord by just hitting the root, and then we're going to a G chord and then back to a C chord. So 2 measures of C, 1 measure of G, and then back to C for a measure. Hey Seth, how's it going? Oh cool, you got some good ones. You got some good loopers. Cool. Those are some good things. Awesome. So first we'll loop that, and then we'll add a melody over it. The melody, I'm probably just going to use C, which is the 5th fret on the G string, D, E, F, and G. So that's 5th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret, 10th fret, and 12th fret. I'm going to go back and forth with those and kind of improvise a melody. And I'm just going to loop both of them. And then we might add some stuff to that, or we might just kind of like start with the basic thing. I'm thinking after we do those 2 parts, we'll add some chords, but I might stop the loop just so you can hear what the chords are going to sound like. So first we'll just start with those 2 basic things. There's no drum beat, there's no anything. We're just going to do that groove. So we got to count really, really well, make sure we hit everything in time, and hopefully I'll get it right the first time. Let's see. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1. All right, so I think this chord shorted out on me. Yep. All right, so we're gonna try that again. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 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 3 and 4 and loop. So notice I still had to count 3 and 4 and, even though I was done playing, before hitting the loop again, so that it will start back over in time. So then if we wanted to add a melody to that, we just kind of just make something up like that. It could be something simple like that. It could be even simpler than that if we want to. Let's try that. So I'm just going to do this twice. So I could loop that, or I could just play over it. So that's basically the simplest loop. Right now I'm not going to loop that melody because we may want to add more to the groove, but that's how we can play a melody over a bass line like that. Right. So a long time ago, Seth, speaking of like, it's not just for techno and for other things like that, I actually used to do some bass solo gigs where I would use the loop pedal to fill out the sound. I mean, I could do some solo stuff without a loop pedal, but at a certain point it becomes limiting. So it's kind of nice to have that extra aspect of the pedal just to add more to it. So that's the idea. Hey, Robert. Thanks for dropping by. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to come back to the questions and suggestions here in a little bit. We'll get through this this loop pedal part, and then we'll talk more about that. But I do have some suggestions for you. I just have to think about it for a minute. So we've got our bass line, and we're outlining a C chord and a G chord. So now we've got to figure out a smaller way to play a C chord. I'm going to go with this one and the G chord down here. And I'm going to play these really lightly so that they don't clash with the melody when we play it later. So pluck lighter when you're doing these chords. So the C is going to be the 10th fret on the D string and the 9th fret on the G string. And then when we get to the G chord, it's going to be the 5th fret on the D string and the 4th fret on the G string. And so when the bass line's going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and I'm thinking we can just go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and we'll keep it really simple to leave room for the melody. We'll just play half notes. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to let the groove play one time around, because in order to record, I have to hit the pedal a second time. So that's where it changed to G. And then back to C. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it should be loop now. So you can kind of hear that in there. It just fills out the sound a little bit. And so then we could add a melody over the top still. Really hokey melody that was pretty much all quarter notes, but you get the idea. So that's how we can layer it. So now we've got chords, and we've got a really basic bass line, really basic half note chords, 2-note chords. So they're really more like double stops here, but that's the idea. Greetings, Paula. Okay, let's see. Awesome. So we've got that. So now the next thing we can do to spice it up a little bit, usually I do this in the opposite order, where I'll do the drum groove first, but we've kind of got the idea. So since this bass line rhythm has this rhythm of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and so it's 1 and 3, right? So since we have that rhythm, I think the bass drum pattern should be like, so I'm going to slap that with my thumb. And honestly, I'm going to boost the bass on the U-bass. So I'm boosting the bass frequency. If you watch my tone video, you'd understand why. And I'm not going to mute it way up here like I was, because that'll make it higher pitched. So I'm going to mute it way down here to try to give it more of a bass drum kind of sound. And then I'm going to slap for snare drum sound. And in order to get that to come out more, I'm going to turn the treble up. I'm going to do these at the same time, but you could also just loop the bass and then come back around and loop the treble. You know what? With the high end up, that doesn't sound as much like a bass drum, so I might just pluck. And then the snare is going to be like that. So I'm going to slap with my hand on beats 2 and 4. If you really wanted to get the nicest sound and get it more like a drum tone, what I would do is not turn the high end up, turn the bass up really loud and just record the bass part, and then turn the bass down a little bit, turn the treble up, and then do that. But what I'm doing right now is trying to get them both at the same time to just to give you an idea of if you're playing live in front of people, you don't want to waste all their time by sitting there trying to do the drum part in small segments like that. So let's see if we can do this. Here is the goal. So I've turned the mids down a little bit. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with plucking it. And then I'm going to do this for the snare instead of slapping the strings, because honestly, that doesn't sound enough like a snare to me. So what I'm doing here is kind of strumming the strings down. So I'm starting with my hand like this, and then flinging my fingers out, hitting it with the fingernails. It can be one finger, it can be 2 or 3. I think I'm hitting it with 3 right now. So first, I'm going to do a practice loop by letting it play through and just getting the groove for it. And then I'm going to hit the pedal to record. So I hit it once to play the groove. Whoop, so that I can make sure I'm not going too fast, right? Also to make sure I'm doing the right thing, I'm going to hit the pedal. I have to redo it. Because I hit the first one at a time. Check it out. Yeah, the first one was out of time. So what I do here is on this pedal, I hold that record button down and it takes away just the last one that I did. So here we go again. Okay, so that's close enough for me. It's not quite perfect. But now it's starting to sound like a groove, right? So I'm going to let it play. But now I think we're ready to add the melody. I don't think we really need any other layers in there. You could add like an imitation of a hi-hat. What I would do here is turn like the bass down and turn the treble up, and then just kind of go, just kind of going down and up. But I think that's too much for this. I kind of like this simple groove. So that's just another layer you could add if you wanted to. But it's kind of hard to get it in time. And you got to remember to turn your tone back. And kind of even out the tone, make sure the mids are in there again. Turn the treble back so it doesn't have this like giant attack on everything. And then I'll play the melody. So all I'm doing with the melody is basically walking up the scale 2 times to the G. Skipping over F. And I'm going D, E, F, D, E, B, C. It sounds like a nursery rhyme or something. So it's just a really basic thing you can do. Just use a scale to come up with a melody. All right, so now we have like a way to make a nursery rhyme kind of thing sound cool. Sounds a little bit better. So from there, it's the same concept. I'm going to delete that loop now. It's just a matter of what style do you want to play. So like, let's say we want to play a country style thing that sounds sort of like a Johnny Cash kind of thing, but we're not going to go all the way around a 12 bar right now because I think that would take too long. So what I'm going to do is kind of imitate the feel that he would have on Folsom Prison, but do it over some different chords. So we'll be in G for this, and we'll just do like, we'll have that be our groove. And I think, let's see, that'll be our drum beat. So we'll be kind of like thumping and then going down, up with our hand. So I'm not really slapping because slapping gives too much attack. Kind of just thumping through. So I'm just pulling the thumb through the string. And honestly, I think I'm going to add a little bit more high end and a little bit more bass. So I get. Actually, we don't want that much high end. We don't want this to stand out that much. So I'll keep the treble kind of low. And so that'll be the drum part. I still feel like with this kind of country line, it's going to be easier if I just start with the bass line. So I'm just going to keep everything pretty low, keep the treble down a little bit to separate it from what happens next, keep the mids down a little bit, and just keep it really low sounding. You could also mute it. You know what? Let's do that. So what I'm doing is I'm palm muting back here. I'm putting my palm right next to the pickup. And you don't want to over mute it, so you just move it back until you get enough sound out of it, but not ringing out like that. So just find that happy medium. And then I'm going to use my thumb to pluck. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I added a little walk-in because I thought it'd be kind of fun. So this was, if you're not familiar with that bass line, I'm going to stop the pedal real quick. I'm doing G, D, which is, sorry, the thing shorted out again. So G is the 3rd fret on the E string, then D, the 5th fret on the A string. Do that twice. Then we're going to go to C, the 3rd fret on the A string, and G, the 5th fret on the D string. We're going to do 2 there. And then we're going to go up to the D, the 5th fret on the A string, in other words. And then the 7th fret on the D string, which happens to be an A. And then after I do that once, I'm going to do this little walk up. And that's on the A string, 5, 5, and then the 7th fret. And then on the D string, 4th fret. And then actually, instead of going to the 5th fret on the D string, I went back down to the 3rd fret on the E string, which is that same note down the octave. Okay? And that's the idea. So we've got G, D, G, D, C, G, C, G, D, A, D, D, E, F sharp, G. Yeah. D, 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 E, F sharp, G, D, G. Yeah, and then it starts over. So, sorry, that was a little bit confusing, but you get the idea. Now we're going to add the drums, and that's going to be this. And you know what? I want more of a bass sound. And I want to add a little bit more snare sound in. So let's see. We're going to make it kind of subtle. And first I'm going to let it play through, and then I'm going to hit the record button. So I can just practice. I think that's good, so I hit it. So now I've got that kind of little country train beat sort of thing going. Kind of imitating it a little bit. And then we probably need some chords over that. Not very Johnny Cash-like on the rhythms, though. So let's see, what can we come up with? Oh, I was still looping. end up with a mess there. I'm probably gonna have to delete it and do the drums again. So that's the other thing. With the loop pedal, sometimes it's hard to remember to turn it off, to turn it back on and do that. So just bear that in mind, that you have to remember the extra step of hitting the pedal an extra time to start the recording and take it back out. So here we go. Oh, and then of course the chord shorts out. All right, so we're gonna have a couple little shorting out sounds from the chord. Hopefully that'll work. So now we've got the drums, and I've stopped the recording aspect of the loop pedal successfully. We'll jump back into it. Okay. Of course, the problem with not playing it perfectly is those sounds end up in your loop. So just keep that in mind when you're looping. But basically what this is just the G chord is, I'll pause it for a second. The G chord is going to be the 5th fret on the D string and the 4th fret on the G string. Okay, and so I'm doing middle finger and pointer finger to get that. Then I'm moving up to the 10th fret on the D string and the 9th fret on the G string. And then from there, I'm moving up to the 12th fret on the D string and the 11th fret on the G string. So those are the chords, and the rhythm I'm going is, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So one, let's see, what rhythm is that? Bump, 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 bump. It's almost a clave pattern, kind of with the 2 hits first and then 3 after. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then the whole loop starts over again at that point. So then now we have this with that plus the drums plus the bass. I guess I wasn't doing the and 4 and, so just leave the last hit off of what I was saying before, or add it in if you like it. So I think that's a pretty full loop. We don't really need much else, except now we can just play a melody on top of it and solo over it. So I'm in the key of G, so I've got all the notes of the G major scale that I can play. And to make it stand out over the chord, I'm going to boost the treble a little bit, boost the mids, maybe bring the bass down a tiny bit. So all I'm doing is playing the G major scale. Let me tell you what notes those are, and then I'm just kind of soloing using that. And I know what the chord tones are in each chord. So if you know the arpeggios, there's a whole bunch of other videos on this stuff if you don't know it already. But basically, you can just kind of like, you can kind of just go through the G major scale, but resolve or hang out on the notes that are in the chord that you're on. So this is the G major scale pattern that I'm using for this solo right now. And sometimes I was going one note past to the A up here, which is a whole step past that G, 14th fret in other words. So this G major scale, I'm playing the first 5 notes in one position and then doing the other notes like this. So that's the 5th fret on the D string is our G. 7th fret on the D string is our A note. Then 4th fret on the G string, and that's going to be our B note. Then we've got a C note, 5th fret. and the rest is on the G string, by the way. 7th fret is a D note. 9th fret is an E note. 11th fret, F sharp. And the 12th fret is a G again. And so sometimes I add the 14th fret A in there just to be able to solo basically over the D chord, the one we're going. So when that happens in the loop, I can go to that note sometimes too, but not usually otherwise. Okay? And then it's just a matter of like, you know, having practiced your scales so that you can kind of move around within that and then resolve to the notes that are in each chord. So I know it's very brief, but we're going to try doing a little bit more. So I just want to stop there and kind of go back to some other things. But I'll give you one more example of soloing over it, just using those notes to give you an idea. Another thing I'm doing is I'm playing closer to the bridge to get a punchier tone that'll cut through over the mix that's already happening. You just kind of come up with little themes that you can do. So over each chord, I'm doing the root of the chord and then walking up the scale. And then back down. That kind of thing. So just come up with little themes that you can kind of use within your solos, and that might help a little bit too. It sounds Hawaiian, like I should be playing ukulele. Well, it's bass ukulele, so it is ukulele, right? But yeah, that's kind of the idea. But to me, I'm trying to imitate a country sound, but I think doing the clave pattern with the chords made it sound less country. So that's really the idea there. But that's a way you can do kind of a country groove, but it kind of sounds like multiple things, really. So check it out. Okay, this one's about to get a U bass. Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out here, and let me know what U bass you end up getting. That's awesome. Okay, so we'll keep going a little bit, but a lot of times I like starting with the drums. The only thing about starting with the drum groove is you have to know how long to do the pattern. So on these other two things, the reason I started with the bass groove was because off the top of my head, I didn't know how long I was going to make the pattern. And I was afraid that if I just did the drum groove up front, I'd forget how long to do it, right? So sometimes it's good to start with the bass groove for that, but it's harder to stay in time, and it's harder to add drums to it after the fact. So if you're doing more like a 1-measure groove, like you're trying to do a funk groove or something, or maybe a 2-measure groove, I think we should do 2 to 4 measures, because sometimes on this loop pedal, if I do too short of a measure, it won't loop it right. And I don't know if that's a thing with other loop pedals, but with mine, if you make the loop too short, it does its own thing with it. And so you have to make it longer than a certain amount. Very cool. Awesome. And hey, BB Ukes. Good to see you. So what I'm going to do is start with kind of like a funky sort of groove, and I'm just going to slap and pop it. Something like that, maybe. So what I'm doing there is slap, pop, slap, 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 pop, slap, slap, pop, slap, 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 pop, slap. And so what I'm doing is I'm imitating a bass drum with my thumb, and I'm imitating a snare drum with my pop, right? So you can change the rhythm up if you want to, but what I would do is when you're playing bass, try to imitate a drummer. The pops, the snare hits are probably going to be on beats 2 and 4. So if you can just kind of keep that in mind when you're listening to drums, a lot of times in most songs, if the drums are in 4/4, it'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4 for the snare drum, 2, 3, 4, and then the bass drum will most of the time hit on beat 1, and then it'll do something else later. So that time I'm going boom, 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 boom. So those are kind of complicated. You could just start simple. So you could just go slap, pop, slap, pop. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can start a little bit more complex where you do one thumb hit, then pop, and then 2 thumb hits, and then pop. So slap, pop, slap, slap, pop, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And so the bass drum or a thumb was on 1 and 3 and then the pops were on 2 and 4. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then you just got to work up all the variations. Another thing you could do is leave the snare drum on 2 and 4 and then hit every other 8th note with your thumb. So you could go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and for more of a driving kind of song. And if you want to do something funky, you can add some 16th notes in. 1E and a 2E and 3. So 1E and a 2E and a 3E and yeah, you can add things like that if you can count and play them at the same time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. You know, that kind of thing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and let's try the 16th notes. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. So you can hit the other ones in there, but making sure that the bass drum hits are kind of like on beat 1 and then some interesting rhythms if you want to syncopate it for funk. Okay, so the reason that I'm teaching you guys this, because even if you're not playing with a loop pedal, you might be like, why would I learn this if I'm not going to do a loop pedal and not do anything like that? I'm really training you to listen to the drums, because if you're locking in with the drummer, if you're playing with a band, you really want to lock in with the drummer and match that groove. But also, if you're not playing with the drummer, you kind of are the bass drum. So you want to know what a bass drum's purpose is in the song, because you're not only playing the root note of the chord, but you're providing essentially the rhythm of the bass drum. If you're playing with like a ukulele ensemble, they're providing more of the snare, somewhere in there. 1 and 2, 1 and 2, we'll see, 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2. Notice that they have 2 and 4 in those strums. So you want to leave that in there. So a flamenco kind of strum, like that kind of thing, you kind of can. So right there I'm doing like a 3-finger hit. You could probably get your pinky to hit too, but yeah, there you go. I got my pinky to hit. If that's the kind of thing you're talking about, then yeah, you can, but it's probably better to mute the E and the A string and just do it on the D string, unless you're higher than the 5th fret, in which case you can kind of get away with it there. But yeah, you can add a little bit of flair with that kind of thing, and then you can just do down up otherwise. So I'm not like super familiar with every kind of hit that flamenco players do, but the answer is probably yes, but it'll be a little bit harder, especially if you have the rubber strings, because they'll stick a little bit more, and so you'll have to put a little bit more force behind what you're doing so that they don't get stuck on the looser tension strings. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think a loop pedal is great, because it's not the same as jamming with people at all, but it is kind of like you're listening and you're aware of what other people do within a band. So then when you go out and actually do get a chance to jam with people, which I know right now is kind of like a hard time to figure out how to do that or where to do that, unless you have family members that are staying with you or something that also play instruments. But hopefully that'll kind of all work together. But yeah, until then you can kind of write your own songs with the looper, or just jam to songs that you already know. A song that I was thinking about earlier that would be really good with the loop pedal is "Stir It Up," the Bob Marley and the Wailers, because like you don't even really need to do the drum part at all, because the drums would be a little bit different on reggae, which we could talk about in a second. But you can kind of go. make sure to mute the lower strings like I wasn't doing a second ago. And if you do that kind of thing, when basically what I'm doing is I'm doing muted strum down up and then strumming the chord after. So it's like 1 E and 2 E. And so it's muted strum up, down strum, and then muted strum up. So. And you probably want to do that whole pattern through twice so that you can get the whole bass line in there. But I think we were going to try to do funk, but why don't we just go ahead and do this since I've already kind of explained how to do that. So I'm just going to do this one slowly so that I can hopefully get it cleanly. I don't think I've ever tried to loop it this way. So here we go. It's an A chord, a D chord, and an E chord. So that's the 7th fret on the D string and the 6th fret on the G string. Then the 12th fret for the D chord is going to be 12th fret on the D string, 11th fret on the G, and then the E chord, which you notice I'm having to like move my hand out so that I can reach over the body of the bass, but that's going to be the 14th fret on the D string and the 13th fret on the G string. Okay, so you got to mute the first two, which means hold the strings lightly so that they don't ring out. And I'm using my thumb to mute the other two strings and just going down and up really small motions with just my pointer finger. The other fingers may look like they're playing, but they're just kind of close. They're not actually playing. Okay. And I'm keeping it light and delicate on purpose. That's why I'm doing the one finger. Have a lot of control over it. So let's see. Oh, forgot to do it. I forgot I had to do it twice. That was me pretending that I was going to loop right there and then forgetting to do it twice. Okay, here we go. There we go. So I looped it right again. When I got back around to beat 1, that's where I hit the pedal to stop it as well. So then you can go, here's the bass line. I don't think I had to loop it twice. I think I just thought I did. So let's talk about the bass line before I throw it on there. But one thing is, if you're going to sing it too, that's enough stuff right there to where your bass line is kind of filling out the bass drum. Those little strums are kind of filling out what a hi-hat would do, or maybe even just what a guitar or uke player would do. Honestly, those two things are enough if you're singing the melody. So if you're singing the melody, you may want to just leave it like that, where it's just that one loop going. And the reason I'm saying that is there are two different bass parts in here in the song Stir It Up, but they both happen over the same chord progression. So that part that's looped doesn't have to change. But then there are these, here's the other bass line. So I showed you the first one. Here's the second bass line. So that's the verse. But it still happens over the same chords. So as a practice tool, you could just loop everything but the bass part and then play the bass part. Okay, so let's talk about what the bass part is. It's the 5th fret on the A string, the 5th fret on the E string. It happens to be an A note. And then we'll play the 4th fret on the A string, then the 5th fret on the A string. And actually there are two 4th frets, 4th, 5th, on the A string though. So it's 5 on the E, 4 on the A, 4 on the A again, then 5 on the A, then back to 4 on the A. And then that same thing where we kind of preface it, 4, 5. And then we're going to do an arpeggio here. So if you know your major arpeggios, you know what the other two notes are going to be. But we're doing a D major arpeggio. So that's going to be the 5th fret on the A string, the 4th fret on the D string, and the 7th fret on the D string. And I like to preface the next one. It's going to be an E major arpeggio, but I like prefacing it with a D note. So I go 5th fret on the A string, then 7th fret on the A string, 6th fret on the D string, and 9th fret on the D string. So that's the chorus. And the verse is just going to be, then you wait. So what I'm doing there is 5, 7, 7 on the A string. Then the 4th fret on the, sorry, did I say the A string? I meant the E string. I keep saying A string. So let's start that over. So we've got, for the verse part, we've got 5th fret, then 2 7th frets on the E string, and then we've got the 4th fret on the A string, and then back to the 5th fret on the E string. So we got, then we wait, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, sorry, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4. So it's got a little swing to it. Dun, 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So I'm just gonna not loop that, but just play back the loop there and play along with it. And I think this sounds full. So if I knew all the words to stir it up, then I could sing over that and everything would be good. Unless the chord shorts out again. Here we go. So we've got that. I think I like the tone better without that much treble. So I'm going to boost the bass, take some treble out of there. Much better. Let's go to the verse. Little darling, stir it up. Come on, baby. You get the idea, though. So that is the idea behind looping that song. So I would just kind of like combine the drums and the upbeats in one, you know. So it's kind of like you're playing the, sort of imitating the drums and the guitar at the same time, and then you're adding that bass line in. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. Honestly, I'm getting tired of these sunglasses. I think the sun's starting to go down over here. I'm going to put on my actual glasses so I can read what you guys are saying. Let's see if there's anything there. Wow, everything's so bright. But yeah, the loop pedals are great practice tools. So I think it's good whether you do that. Just a word about them. You also have like a metronome built into them. So if you wanted to, you could turn a metronome on and loop with the metronome so that you get more practice in of hitting the start and the end just right on. So that's the whole idea. But let's try one more groove, and I'm going to start with the drums on this, and then the bass line. And I want to make it funky somehow. So I'm trying to think of how to do that. We were talking about it earlier. We were talking about you can kind of put the snare drum, which is our popped note, on 2 and 4, and put the first bass drum hit, the first slap on beat 1, but then just kind of add some other things in there. Why don't we do like 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and it almost sounds like Tom Sawyer or something. Okay, so what loop pedal do I recommend for a beginner? I have a couple of links in the description below. The first one that I had was the single pedal, and I got to say it was a little bit frustrating having a single pedal looper because that pedal has to do a lot more, right? So like if you have the 2 pedals or more pedals, I think Boss has one with 2. The one that I linked below is like the upgraded version of mine, so they decided to make it with like 4 pedals, and I don't exactly know. But the one I'm using right now is the Digitech Jam Man, but I'm using the older one that just has 2 pedals. Now they have one called the Jam Man Solo. It's a single pedal, but the downside on that, when I had the Boss looper that I linked below as well, the single pedal Boss looper, that one, what you did to start the loop, you hit the pedal once, right? To loop over it, you'd hit it again one single time. If you wanted to stop the loop, was the really tricky part. So if you wanted it to just stop playing, you notice how I'm just hitting the pedal once. Well, on that pedal, you had to do essentially like, remember how you had to like double click on a mouse? It was like you had to double click the pedal to get it to stop. So the biggest problem with that was if you're live trying to play something and it's the end of the song and you want to stop the song abruptly, if you miss the second hit or they just both don't hit right, then your song just continues playing. And then what it would do is if you wanted to delete the loop that you just did, then while it was playing, if you held the pedal down, it would just delete the one previous loop if you messed up. But if you wanted to delete the entire song, you had to stop it first and then hold it down to delete it. So if you press it once and let it go, the song would start playing again. But if you held it down, the song would delete. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the single pedal versus the other ones. The Boss one under there is probably the most cost-effective one. It's like $100, 100 US dollars basically. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But the having the multiple pedals is kind of nice. And I believe that the one that has the 4 pedals, that's a little bit more expensive. I want to say it's $200, maybe twice as expensive or a little bit more. It has more options, and you might even be able to have like a third loop. And so like the problem with these single and double loopers is that, let's say in the middle you messed something up, but you accidentally recorded something afterwards. Well, then you can't delete the middle part. You have to just delete the whole loop over and start again, or let the mistake be in there forever. So that's kind of the thing. Yeah, I had the Boss pedal. I think they upgraded it, but it was the same red single pedal, and I liked it a lot. I actually played many shows with it, and then I just ended up getting this other one because I was playing a lot more shows and just didn't want to have that frustration of trying to do the double click. But if you're just using it as a practice tool, I mean, you're probably not going to worry about that too much. It just might be a little bit annoying having to do the double click. And for all I know, they changed that feature and they have an easier way to do it now, but I'm not sure. What I like about this loop pedal, though, is it lets you save a lot of different loops. So I think it's got like 100 slots or something. It's got a little memory card you can put in there, and you can save songs on there. So I actually use it to write songs. Let me see if I can find one on here. Not sure what that is. Obviously that's full scale bass. So I was trying to write a song, and I guess I was like looping one part, and then the idea was to loop something else over it. If I just go through here, let's see what else is on here. Oh, wow. So if you heard, that's really loud. Hold on a second. Loop level. You can turn the loop level down. There's a volume thing. This is the song In Between off my album. And so like I recorded piano into it. I recorded upright bass into it. And just to get like a demo version of a song. Yeah. So so that's kind of what I use it for. Now there's a limit to how long the loops can be. So here there's actually, the only limit is just how big the memory card is. But I think you can record like 3 or 4 minutes or something. There are some other loop pedal options that record a much smaller loop. And you might be able to find another one that's 100 that might have different options that might be an even smaller pedal. But I believe there's one that's marketed as a delay pedal, but it has a looping ability, but you can't layer loops. You can just do one loop. So it just depends on what you want out of it. But hopefully that gives you some options on there. That's a great question and very, very relevant. So just thought that would be a good one to answer. So let's do like a funk loop. So I turned to an empty patch, so I'm not recording over anything. So let's see. I like that. So 1E and a 2E and a, so what is it? 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E. And so there's some U's in there. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So 1, a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So I'm going to do it a little bit faster. loop that first, just because it's easier to play along to the drums than it is to try to add the drums into something else later. Unless you jump the gun. All right, that was a little too. I rushed a little bit. 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Ooh, that's quiet. So I had a loop volume too low on here. So that's kind of cool. Since we're going to do something funky, I think we need 16th notes on the hi-hat. So I'm going to imitate that by keeping this hand up here to get a higher pitch sound. I'm going to turn the treble up a little bit. So my goal is to just basically do 16th notes on here. I'm not the greatest at getting them even. It's kind of hard on the U bass, but I'm just using my thumbnail to try to get that sound. You could hear kind of toward the end. I maybe have to redo that. Let's see. Yeah, actually it's kind of cool, but it's not intentional, so I'm going to redo it. So I'm going to let it play for a second with the loop recording so I can get it right. That's good enough for me. So I'm going to hit the stop recording button so I don't loop over that again. So now we got to come up with the bass line. Okay, so what I'd rather do than something like that is lock in with that kick drum. So we got 1, 2, and sorry, 1E and 2E and 3E and so 1, so 1E and so that's our bass drum rhythm. Boom, boom. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1E and. Right? So we'll just make a groove on like one thing like that. So that would be a simple groove that you could do over there. Or you could do something busy. It doesn't have to lock in with just the kick. That's just a way to make it groove a little harder. Like you could go. You could add something else to it. I don't like how much high end I have there. You could also slap. You know, just something like that. What do you guys like better? Do you like it? Do you like a slap groove? Do you like something that locks in with the kick drum, or do you like something that's a little bit busier but kind of locks in with the kick drum? Like, that kind of thing. If I don't hear from you guys, I'll probably just do that last one because that was kind of cool. I like that sound. Yeah, let's go with that because it's kind of easy. 3 and a 4. Yeah. I decided to change it up last minute. Add that extra note at the end. Oh no, it's my fault. Don't blame that on me. All right, which kind of Kali bass did you get, John? Okay. So that's our groove. Now we got to figure out like what kind of chordal thing will work over that. So we got to think like a guitar player. So we had our drummer hat on. We're like, okay, I'm not a drummer anymore. Now I'm a bass player. Cool, I got my bass groove. And I'm going to teach you what that bass groove is real quick. Let me stop this real quick. So we got. So 1E and a 2E and so I'm playing all of the 16th notes on the first beat. 1E and right? 1E and a 2E and so I'm leaving out beat 2, slightly syncopating it. 1E and a 2E and so for the E and I'm doing 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret on the E string. So 3 3 3 3 1 2 3. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and okay. You'll see. Dun, 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 dun. So I'm kind of adding these slap notes to figure out where those rests are. Sometimes it's okay to do that when you have a band playing behind you. If you don't have the band playing behind you, you just have to not add that extra noise in there because it's supposed to be a rest. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. So now I'm just playing on the E's and the U's. I'm skipping over the numbers and the ands. So if I was doing 3 E and this would be 3 E and 4 E and right? 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4. But then I'm playing beat 4 is that first fret on the A string. The other notes were all G's. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and so that's third fret on the E string, 3 E and so we're just playing the E and the there. 3 E and 4. Then beat 4 is our first fret on the A string. And so the second time around, it's the exact same thing. I'm just adding on the and after beat 4, I'm adding the third fret on the A string. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and so that's our whole bass groove. I might have prefaced the second one. I think I went 1. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and yeah. So I may have added one extra note in there, but let's just keep it to what we just said. It's basically the same thing. I just added something on the after beat 4, just to give it a little bit of a push into the next groove, and that was just a first fret on the E string. Okay. So now what goes over the top of this? It's kind of cool. What if I try to do something a little more minor? Let's see. I don't like that too much. So I want to make this in G minor because basically the notes that I'm using kind of signify G minor. So to do a G minor 2-note chord, I'm going to play the G on the D string. So this is 5th fret on the D string, and then 3rd fret on the G string. And you can see I'm using my ring finger for the first note, pointer finger for the second note. I'm just going to strum that. And I think I want to use the rhythm. It's like this. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and so let's see. Let's see. I think I like that best. Let's see. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E. That's not what I had. Wow, the bass line's messed me up now. Yeah. I'm gonna have to stop it and think about it slowly. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and so it's 1 E and 2 E. So we're not playing on 2 or the E after 2. The next one will start on and. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and in the last grouping, it's going to be 4 16th notes in a row. First one starts on beat 1. Then the second grouping starts on the and after beat 2. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and then the last one will start right on beat 4. 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and I can't say it and count apparently. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and okay, so practice it slow to get that one down. If it's confusing me, it's probably a good idea to try it slow first. Okay. All right, so there's going to be a little overlap. We're going to hear slightly louder on that first one. That didn't make much of a difference. So I kept the chord kind of low. I kept the notes kind of low. You can tell it's a little bit muddy. So normally what I would do is change the tone in between those two things to give a little bit of variety. But I left them both too muddy. So now, to make the melody stick out, whatever we come up with, I'm going to turn the treble up, keep the middle up, and turn the bass down a little bit. It should be something simple. So I'm doing like a G and an F here. I think I'm going to do a little harmony part instead of a melody. So I'm just going to build a chord on top of this by doing a little melody that I'm going to harmonize. So check this out. Let's see what happens. Well, apparently the cable shorted out. Let's see if it's working now. Okay, so now I'm going to add another harmony on top of there. Hopefully the intonation won't be too bad. So when I would do shows, I would just keep adding layer and layer until it was really busy like this. Maybe I'd be soloing over it for a little while after that. Really mostly G blues scale there. I did a little chromatic thing there, but so you kind of have fun with it. Now, I like to do at the end of this, given that the loop pedal's not old and doesn't have some shorts in it too. I just like to fade it out. So you can have a lot of fun with loop pedals. So it's kind of fun, but that's basically the idea. So you can start with the drum groove or you can start with a bass groove. I would usually start with one of those unless you're imitating a song that starts with a different instrument, you know? And then sometimes you can do the drum and the guitar groove at the same time. So if it's one of those kinds of songs, Stir It Up actually does start, you know, with some like keyboard doing some things, but then it already has the rhythm in there. So you can kind of that kind of imitates all the stuff that's kind of going on at the beginning there. So so yeah, we started with a very, very simple song that was mostly just what was it? Bum, bum, bum. Just a simple root note groove. And then we played a melody over that. Then we added a simple drum beat to it. And if you're trying to add drum beats to things, I would start with just doing like bass drum, snare, bass drum, snare. So you're just doing slap, pop, slap, pop. And that's what we're really imitating with those sounds. And then after that, I try to just vary it up and figure out what the bass drum does on different styles of music. So you could listen to some beginner drum grooves and just zone out the hi-hat. So what they're doing with this hand is keeping the time basically. Just zone that out and look at what their foot's doing. That'll be the bass drum, and what their left hand is doing if they're a right-handed drummer. So like if they're going 1, 2, 3, 4, just look at what the foot's doing and what the left hand is doing. Boom, pop, boom, pop. They might have boom, boom, pop, boom, boom, pop. They might have boom, boom, pop, boom, 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 pop, boom, boom, boom. You know, they might have a really busy bass drum. So just kind of imitate those grooves. Right? And then make them more complicated as you go. Right, you can add a whole bunch in, but start simple and work your way up to that. And so having a whole lot of differences in there would just be a good thing to do. So start simple, work your way up, be able to play drum grooves with slap while muting with this hand. Then you can also do that on slap lines. So so yeah. Okay, BB Ukes, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you next time. All right. So you can also do that with your slap lines. You can kind of imitate things like that. But a lot of times we don't do the same thing with slap. Because, I mean, if you hear grooves like that, those pops aren't always where the snare drum is. You're getting a wanderer. Cool. So that's this one. Awesome. So yeah, I like the wanderer. It's a good one. But anyway, that's the idea. Start simple, kind of work your way up to it. I think starting with the drum groove, if you're really solid with your timing, will help you keep the rest of the song in time. But if you're super consistent with your time, you can start with the bass line or start with one of the other instruments and then add everything to it after that. And then if you play ukulele too, you could literally turn the volume down, unplug it, plug your ukulele in, and add that on top if you didn't want to do the chords on the bass. But honestly, I'd go through and just learn these little 2-note chords, whether they're major and minor. Really, the only thing that matters is if you're playing on the D and the G string. If you want to figure out what chord you're playing, you figure out the name of the note on the D string. So if you say, okay, I'm playing an F, you go, am I playing an F major chord, an F minor chord? The major chord will be back 1 fret and down a string. The minor chord will be back 2 frets and down a string. So then I'd use my ring finger to play the root note. So F minor, F major, F minor, F major. So then you got the idea on how to find your chords. So you can add little chords like that. And that way, the reason I'm doing it on the D and the G string is it stays out of the sonic range of the bass part. So the bass part's down here, right? Then the chords are up here if you want them to be. And then the melody will be up higher. And that way you don't have to think about tone as much because you're just separating them sonically like that. But if you want it to sound less muddy when it's all together, then you may want to go through, the bass part, turn the treble down and the mids down and get more low end bass. And then when you're recording the drum part, I usually turn the mids down. I have the bass pretty high and I have the treble pretty high. Not super high, not all the way, but fairly high. And then that way you get more of the separation between the two if you're doing the... It might be better to thump, like just pluck through the E string and then pop the other string. So you got that idea, and then that way you got the idea on the EQ there. And then when you're doing the melody, you probably want the mids and the treble up a little bit, just so you're keeping it separated and not letting things get too muddy. All right. So hopefully that gives you an idea. And then just think about songs in terms of drums, bass line, chordal instrument, and melody, and just do four parts or less. So you could just do bass part, drums, and melody and forget about the chords, or you can do some other things like that. All right, well, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Does anybody have any questions? I think I had some questions early on. I'm going to answer those and then get to the last ones. But Charlie, thanks for hanging out, and Wendy, thanks for hanging out, and John, thanks for hanging out. And I think BB Ukes is already gone, but thanks for hanging out as well. Seth, are you still here? Do you have any questions? So you can go ahead and leave some questions, but I'm going to scroll up because there was one. Somebody was asking what slap song suggestions. Looks like A. Gordon was asking about slap song suggestions. Depends. Are you looking for beginner slap songs, or are you looking for complicated ones? Because the one that I'm working on right now is not a beginner song, but there's a lot of Marcus Miller stuff that's really cool, and I'm actually trying to work on the song Scoop. So that's been the challenge for me right now, is learning that one. And if you get a chance to hear that one, there's a video of him. Search Marcus Miller and then Scoop, and there's a video of him playing the bass without all the backing tracks and without all the other stuff that he has in the song. All the other instruments are gone. It's just him with the bass. man, is it cool. It's just cool to hear what he does and what it sounds like and how consistent his timing is and just his groove just by himself. But that's a harder one. If we're talking about like beginner songs, it's not super easy to play full speed, but the version of Higher Ground that Red Hot Chili Peppers does. So I got that whole thing. That's a really good one as far as slap goes. Let's see. We could do trying to think of other slap songs. I mean, I did the Seinfeld theme recently, and that's technically on keyboard, but it sounds kind of cool. You know, all that stuff. So that one's kind of fun to play if you like that one. It's hard to think of stuff on the spot, but Red Hot Chili Peppers really have a lot of different things. So was it trying to think, man, I can't even think of Chili Pepper songs, but they have some really cool ones. Larry Graham's a guy to listen to. He had like Graham Central Station. They had a song called Pal that has a lot of weird 70s sounding effects in it, lasers and whatnot. And it's that part's kind of obnoxious, but the bass line is super cool. Oh, cool. I'll have to check that one out. I don't know the theme song to Passenger 57. I'll have to listen to that one. Thanks, Seth. So I'm trying to think of some other slap tunes that have like easier slap lines than that. I was thinking disco, but a lot of disco is just played with the fingers. The stuff that's coming to mind. Shoot, that's a tough one. But the Chili Peppers version of Higher Ground is a good one. If you're looking for something harder, basically anything by Marcus Miller, Scoop, Power, a bunch of songs like that by him. Victor Wooten, if you want to get really crazy with it. Classical Thump was one that I always like trying to do. That one's got a lot of just using your thumb at the beginning. So if you're trying to get a slap out of the strings that are harder to get a slap out of, that's a really good exercise, is doing Classical Thump. Another one is You Can't Hold No Groove by Victor Wooten. Again, that one's really a tough one to play. Primus has a ton of slap songs, but they also do a lot of Les Claypool also does a lot of strumming with his fingers, so he's kind of doing a little bit of that flamenco stuff, but mostly just like down and up. There's one called American Life, I think. That's more about a single slap and more strumming. So I'm trying to think of one that's just like straight up slap. Tommy the Cat's really hard, but that one's a good slap song. So Primus has some. I'm trying to think of like beginner to intermediate level instead of going with like really hard to play stuff. Oh, Lenny Kravitz, Fly Away. That's a really good one because he's just going. So it's like you're doing a slide, and I'm not sure that I play it 100% like he did, but slap, slide, slap, pop the octave above. So going into the 5th fret on the E string, slap, slide, slap, pop. Then you do some ghost notes. So I think it's, I just like going slap, pop, slap afterwards. Slap, pop, slap with some ghost notes. So I'm just deadening the strings. And then I go 2 into 3. Same pattern that I did there. Then 2, 3, and then the octave above there. So you're sliding from 2 into 3, which on the E string, and then you're popping the 5th fret on the G string. So you're just sliding into a note by 1 fret, playing that note with a slap, and then popping the octave. So hit the note, slide, slap, pop the octave. Hit the note, slide, slap, pop the octave. And then you can add those ghost notes in between. Ghost notes. So that's like the verse, and then the chorus is just, same chord progression, just no slaps, no pops, just a nice little simple groove, root note groove. And there might be some walk-ins into it, but it's basically that. All right, so that's a great question. So then someone says, where can I get a replacement bass tuner for the uke? I would just get a clip-on tuner. I'm looking around to see where mine ended up. Can't seem to find it right now. It must be in the bass case, I guess, with the full-size bass. Like the bass is there, but I guess it's still in the case. But I would just get a clip-on tuner and not get an aftermarket one. If yours isn't working, there are two things it could be. Try replacing the batteries for it. But then I would just get an aftermarket clip-on tuner like the Snark, if you've heard of those. And yeah, so this is for Dale. And basically they just clip onto the end of the headstock. You turn them on and you just tune that way. You could also use a phone tuner. There's free ones, so you don't even have to buy anything. You could just go on your phone. Now, I did a lesson where I talked about, or a video where I talked about different tuners. But I left out pedal tuners, as Seth pointed out. There were some pedal tuners that basically they work the same way. You just click it on and then click it off when you're done tuning. But they all work about the same way. So this one's free. It's the Pano tuner or Pano tuner, P-A-N-O, and it looks like this when you open it up. So you could just use that. You just play your note and it picks it up. Let's see if it'll pick this up from this far away. Oh, my G is out of tune. But yeah, you get the idea. So that's what I would do if the tuner just stopped working, or if I got one that didn't have a tuner on it. Thinking the built-in tuner didn't work so well today, because these are all a little bit out. So that's the other thing. Sometimes the phone tuners are even better than the built-in ones, and sometimes the clip-on tuners, depending on which brand you get, they can be really good or they can be kind of spotty. I think the Snarks are good tuners, but sometimes they kind of wear out quickly, if that makes sense. Like the screen will get really dim, and sometimes it's the battery and you can just replace the battery and it comes back. And sometimes it's just that it gets knocked around a lot in your case, and so that kind of messes it up. But yeah, that's the basic idea of all this stuff. Does anybody else have any questions? Also, if you're looking for tuner suggestions for phones, Seth has another one on here, an app called G Stings. I don't know if that was meant to be if that's meant to be an R, or if it's kind of a brand name kind of thing. And then there's like Guitar Tuna is a good tuner as well. But I like having a chromatic tuner, because then I can tune the strings to things other than E, A, D, and G. So that P-A-N-O tuner. Oh, G strings. Okay. So there's G strings. There's guitar tuna. There's that Pano tuner, P-A-N-O, and just a whole bunch of things like that. And then the other thing, back to the topic where we're talking about loop pedals, you don't have to get a loop pedal. You could also loop on your computer with certain programs. So that might be something worth looking into. It's just usually it's not as immediate as the pedal, and it's nice having a foot control so that you can be doing stuff with your hands while trying to loop. But if that's not a concern of yours and you're just using it as a practice tool, you can download something that's free and just record the part all the way through as well instead of looping it. Or you could, I think Ableton is a program that lets you loop things pretty easily. But then you can also build things with instruments that are on there. So that might be something worth looking into if you don't mind the fact that there's a learning curve with all that stuff. Whereas the loop pedal, there's a learning curve with the loop pedal, but it's mostly timing oriented stuff. And you can use the loop pedal and record straight into the computer. Yeah, I could, all I'd really have to do that is unplug it from my amp, plug it into my interface, and then it would be going straight in. The downside of recording that way rather than recording onto a program is that once you record the loops and you have multiple loops, you can't change the volume of the individual loops. So you have to loop them at the right volume, right? And I think that comes with experience, that the more you play, you'll know how loud to make the drum part, how loud to make the bass part, so that they don't cover each other up. But if you're recording on the computer and doing them all as separate tracks, you can change the volume on them. So that's an advantage to that. But then the disadvantage is if you're playing a show like that, you have to take a computer with you. And there's just a lot more risk with the more stuff you have to bring to a show. But as a practice tool, I think it's great. I think working with the loop pedal is great because you don't need as much stuff to make it work. Just 2 chords, a pedal, an amp, and your U-bass. So yeah, to me, the loop pedal is a lot of fun. And it's been a really great writing tool, a really great practice tool, and just all that jazz. Hey, we didn't even do a jazz loop. I guess that's what I'll do. I'll do a short little jazz 2-5-1 loop. Because the bass plays quarter notes in jazz, I think I'll do the bass first. And honestly, it's kind of hard to come up with the drum groove that really sounds true to jazz. So I'll probably do something kind of cheesier. But I'm just going to do a simple walking line. Or see, maybe not that. So I'll just do that as my loop, and then I'll add some drums, and I'll add some chords after that. And jazz chords are usually 3-note chords. I'll try to do something to kind of get that going. But honestly, I'll probably run out of frets to do that. And actually, I might leave out the root notes because the bass line will get the root notes. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. I think I slowed down while I was playing. Okay, it's got some sort of percussion going on there. So now I got to figure out what I'm going to do for the chords before I loop it. So I turn the loop off just to practice. Let's see what's. Okay, so those are the notes that I want. Just make sure this is working. Here we go. It helps when the chord doesn't short out on you. Hope this will work. So basically, I'm just playing the 3rd and the 7th of the chord up here. So when I do the D minor 7, I'm playing the 7th of the chord and the 3rd of the chord up here. Okay, and if that doesn't make any sense to you, that's okay. It's kind of a complex thing. Just know that what I'm doing to do these small pieces of the chord that are completed by the bass line is the 10th fret on the D string and the 10th fret on the G string. Then I'm just sliding the lower note down 1 fret. So I have the 9th fret on the D string and the 10th fret on the G string for the 2nd chord. And then when I get to the C major 7 chord, I'm doing the 9th fret on both the D and the G string. And I'm just doing that just doing some kind of rhythmic with it. So that's kind of the rhythm there. So then once we have that, we can just kind of solo over it. Same thing with the soloing. I'm using the key of C major. So I'm just using the C major scale and resolving to the notes that are in the chord as I'm going. So that's the idea. You can also do that little fade out here. And all that jazz. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed the live stream this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any extra questions, just leave them on the replay and I'll be happy to get to them. And give me some suggestions for what you'd like to see on the live stream next week. So if I were to devote an hour to working on something, what kinds of things would you like to see? So you can let me know in the comments below. If you like what you saw, you can subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. I have a Patreon, so if you want to become a member on Patreon, it has tabs for a lot of the things. I don't usually do the tabs for the live lessons, but for the weekly lessons, I usually put the tabs up there. And you know, the songs that are copyrighted songs, I usually just give away for free. And then the, you know, just the ones that are more technique based or the original songs or things of that nature are for patrons only. But thank you all again for tuning in. I will see you next week. Have a good week. And I'll see you on Tuesday for the video and then Thursday for the live stream. All right. Bye, guys.